my goodness. Today I'm outside and let me point this up a little bit. Okay, I feel like that's better. This thing is still far away as heck, but that's okay. Morning, it's AFALOZ. Today I'm going to talk about personas. Mainly, I guess now we would call them like online personalities, online personas. But it goes back to kind of like what you cultivate when you're like growing up and who you become as an adult. What's up? And how like your persona, you kind of develop it, right? You become it as you intake information, as you intake things. You start developing this personality, and the more you intake and the more you like become this persona that you're like slowly morphing into, the harder it is to kind of leave that persona. And leaving that persona doesn't necessarily entail becoming a whole new being, but each persona that you like develop kind of has goodwill or like social credit with people, right? Whether with people or entities, just like dependent on where you're building that persona. So you could be one singular person, and the way you act, the way you are, the way you feel is different at home versus how you have it at work. And then when you go from job to job, depending on the culture of the job, you also change that job persona. And then the place that you call home, dependent on whether it's like your parents' home or the home that you have by yourself or the home that you have with a partner, those individuals are also different. They all are separate personas. So you're fracturing yourself over and like over again. And now we've gotten to the point where, because like especially online personas, right? They are what we used to call like media personas, which were like a newscaster or a show host, or like Mr. Rogers, Bob Ross. Those are not the individuals that are away from the characters that we have in our head, because those characters are different. They're personified in a different way. But now we have individuals like myself. When like my name's not AFALOZ. It wasn't AFALOZ before, but it's AFALOZ now. It's AFALOZ to you guys. Some of y'all will know my real name. Some of y'all will know me as Zoller. Some of y'all will know me as AFALOZ. But those are all different personas. The way that I convey myself, right, in an online manner. And you see it now, since everyone has accessibility to be able to like change their persona at will, or when something bad happens to that specific persona, that person wants to go and like reinvent themselves and become something new. So you can see that in, let's see, let me think. I'm pretty good at like being online, so I'm trying to think of like what personas have like changed throughout. So you have someone like, who's popular right now? Vanilla, right? Vanilla is popular right now. Vanilla, that person that you know, is not the person that she is when the camera's off, of course. But then now people are seeing that the Vanilla that they thought they know is wildly different from the Vanilla that they hope that they knew. You can like go into that however you want, but she's slowly fracturing. So you saw that in someone like Gabby Hanna. You saw that someone in what's that guy's name? Dave Dobrik, right? Dobrik. You saw it in that. Who else is YouTube? The Paul brothers or whatever their last name is. You see it in them how people will call, oh, this is just growing up. This is growing up. Like, no, like the people offline, off the camera, are completely different from the people that are on the camera, and you're now seeing divergent paths on these things where one person in an online sphere will grow, and that person growing is also growing when the camera's off. Just craziness, right? So they're branching it off in so many different paths and splitting themselves, and then they settle to one thing. But then when something happens, and they can drop that persona at the drop of a hat, and then like, okay, now I'm the podcaster. I'm not actually that person that was doing all that stuff in Japan. I'm completely different from that guy now. And you're like, oh yeah, he grew, but the persona is just changing, and it's just wild to see it like happen, like live, like, you know, you're just witnessing all these things, and these are things that wasn't commonplace like 50 years ago, like not even that far away, like they weren't commonplace. If you're, as a person, had a scandal, you know, that scandal is going to always follow you, and to some sense of course it's still going to follow you, but you cultivate different subsections of fans, different subsections of minds that see you as one way or the other. And I just find that like utterly fascinating, that we are chasing authenticity. I can't even say that fucking word right. We're chasing authenticness, and we don't realize that in that pursuit of authenticness, that we're changing ourselves to fit, you know, a narrative, to fit something marketable, to fit something that we can sell, to fit something that we can do for like a long term. That's why you see all these people that have been doing this for 10 years. They're like, well, I don't want to be that person anymore. That's not me. And then, you know, I have some fans like, yeah, of course you're going to grow in 10 years. And you have some fans like, well, it's not you. So why are you changing when you're like, you're one way when the camera's off, and you're supposed to be one way because it's your job, blah, blah, blah. And I think now we're starting to realize and starting to understand the impact of these things, and how long these things can kind of live, and the lifespan of like each of these personas, depending on like how often you reach your goals, how often you hit a roadblock or a scandal. There's a lot of different things that kind of impacts the death and the life of a specific persona. And it's cool. That's it. That's like all I wanted to kind of like talk about, that it's so different. It's so different from what we know, or at least like what I know and what I like grew up on, and how people should act, and how people should be. Like, if you're one thing, you should always be that one thing. You always hear people like, oh, you should like focus on one thing and like master it. And you kind of see where that like goes to, and then you put that in the same aspect of like people that are actual masters who have done, you know, they call them Renaissance men, people who are savants in changing. They're savants and chameleon, and they're able to facilitate multiple things. I guess you would like call them, you know, neurodivergent, but they're able to facilitate different personas and cultivate them from the get-go. So as these personas are hitting roadblocks, they just switch to another one, and you know, that can keep going, and then the other one will go to will pass that roadblock, the help of a different persona, and then keep going, and all of them will move in tandem. And, you know, I'm not saying like this is a one-to-one of like a online media personality, but that could also just be on how you see yourself skill-wise. Like, oh yeah, I'm a master painter, or I want to be a master painter, and I also want to be a master chef, and I also want to be a master philosopher. I also want to be, you know, a theologian. So I'm just a preacher man, and you can kind of see these people like Da Vinci, Leonardo, and Michelangelo, who pursued different things in different paces, but they pursued so many different things that they were able to just keep going and mastering all of them. And once one thing doesn't suit their needs or isn't helping their mind, they go and switch to the next thing. And I feel like now we're going to start seeing personas on the online space where people are not just one thing. You're kind of seeing a small bit on like YouTube, VTubers, where they have to switch that persona, and they have to switch that their model and go to like a digital physical representation of someone switching their identity to something else. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more people cultivate different personas at the same time, and it's going to be a whiplash in the beginning. It's going to be like, what? This guy is insane. Like, why is he doing this? But it probably is going to have a longer shelf life than the people only cultivating one persona, or like the old guard of YouTube, the old guard of show business, where they, you have to be Sabrina Carpenter, you have to be Britney Spears. But you're starting to slowly see it, especially with people like Dua Lipa, where they have to cultivate different ways. You kind of see it in Kim Kardashian and her kids and what she's doing with her kids, how they are being, and of course, and Beyonce, and how they're like being cultivated in one way, but then are having to do multiple different things, and like, oh, they're multi-talented. Like, no, they don't want to be, or they could want to be multi-talented, but now they're being forced to be multi-talented because we saw the limitations of what a one-dimensional talent can do. And even if that one-dimensional talent can do a lot of things, it's still one persona, right? It's not really about the talent anymore. It's about the persona, or how you know them as. And you really saw like a prototype of this with people like Nicki Minaj, Roman, with Prince, Asterisk. So we're slowly, and Kanye was trying to do it in his own way, but we are slowly getting to the point where it makes more economical sense to have multiple things happening all at once to gain the longest longevity, because they know that longevity means more money. But anyway, that's all I had. Till next time, like and subscribe.